Hello everyone, long time no see. In tonight's video I'll show you how to weather your decals using a method which will make them look worn, chipped and scratched without using any paints. Here is the tank before the decals. Before recording this video I had textured, primed, base coated, chipped and clear coated this awesome 3D printed tank by Grim Prints. This is Tamiya Mark Fit Strong, my favorite decal solution, which works both to fix and set the decals and is really strong, as you will see. This is one of the side panels on the tank, which has a lot of texture and as such is a real challenge when it comes to decals. Therefore I gave it a very thorough coating and I tried to really work the product into the surface, but without flooding the area. Since I wanted to subject my poor decals to a lot of abuse, as you will see later, I played it safe by applying a second coating of Mark Fit Strong on each panel. Here's a second example, just to make sure that the method for application is clear. So again, apply an even coating without flooding the surface, and repeat after a few minutes if you think the surface or the decal itself may be particularly difficult. So, with Tamiya Mark Fit Strong applied carefully to all the areas where I wanted to add a decal, I let the model dry for 15 minutes. This drying time is really important. This is what the model looked like after applying the product. Like I said before, I had clear coated the entire tank prior, which is why it looks kind of shiny. Now it was time for the scariest part, picking up the first decal, terrified that I might drop it or break it somehow. Time for the other side panel. As you can see, I can never get the decal placed correctly on the first try, but even for a klutz like me, gently repositioning it is not really a big problem. Just take your time and make sure you're happy with the final position, because in a few minutes it will be permanent. Next up, the left side of the turret. Doing this without sticking my hands or head in front of the camera was quite tricky. This one had too much water, so I gently tapped it with a cotton bud to get rid of the excess. Cotton buds play an important role later, as you will see. As some of you may know already, I can be a little bit OCD with the positioning of the decals, so I kept fiddling with it until I was happy enough. But again, better to do that now, as it will set completely rather quickly. After letting the decals dry for 15 minutes, it is time to start with the setting process. As you can see, I don't just give it a thin coat and call it a day. I work the product into the surface of the decal and the surrounding area, applying a little bit of pressure in the process. However, here you can see the decal move a bit. That means that I should really have let this one dry for a few minutes longer. So guys, do as I say, not as I do. Okay, next decal. This white one on the turret is my favorite by far. Those of you familiar with Adeptus Titanicus might have recognized it already. Again, I'm applying the product with slight pressure, working it in, and as you can see, I do it from different angles. I have to say this applicator brush that comes with the Tamiya Mark Fit Strong is super convenient. After this coat of Tamiya Mark Fit, I let everything dry for another 5 minutes. Looking at the model, I was quite happy with the results, but I had to make sure that the decals could withstand all kinds of abuse, so it was time for a second coating. As you can see, this decal had developed some wrinkles, so after the second coating, I took a cotton bud to it and applied some pressure in order to flatten it. This not only took care of the wrinkling, but also made the decal conform really well to the texture of our surface. Okay, let me show you another example of this before we move on. As you can see, on this R01 decal, I also gave it a pretty thorough second coating, and while it was still wet, I moved on to the cotton bud. As Corporal Hicks said in Aliens, it's the only way to be sure. Time for the main event, what will make or break your decals, quite literally if you're not careful. For years I followed the advice that I could find almost universally on the internet. Every video I watched suggested that there was only one way to make decals appear chipped or scratched: to paint the chips or scratches on, either with a sponge or with a brush. But no more, I say. The tyranny of painted chips is at an end. So this is how I do it. Yeah, that's right. I take a sharp pointy object like these tweezers and create actual mechanical weathering. After all, why settle for an imitation if you can have the real thing, right? As you can see, I was kind of testing myself first, being a bit too delicate. Come on, Enrique, enough of this fluffing around, I thought to myself. At this point, I'm sure you've noticed that I'm also adding more weathering to the paint itself in the process. Since I knew that a super tough lacquer base coat could take it, I really enjoyed this part. Encouraged by these beautiful results, I started creating a long diagonal gouge to both the decal and the paint. As you can see, at no point is the decal lifting or crumpling up. This is the magic of Tamiya Mark Fit Strong. Time to get the decal under the knife now. This I don't normally do, but I wanted to give it a try. As I always say, weathering is all about experimentation, guys. Okay, second decal now, the one that gave me trouble before. This one seemed harder to scratch, as it was probably just thicker. Again, I went for some long scratches, which I thought would look pretty cool. And now for the white coat of arms. I knew this one was likely to be the most striking one, so I wanted to make it look extra cool. First, I tried to extend an existing paint chip, creating a more seamless transition between decal and paint. Then I tried to create some smaller chips in the large white areas remaining. Switching to the knife allowed me to have even more precision, and I was quite happy with the results. Now for the last decal standing. Here I tried two things. One, to use existing features in the paint finish again, and secondly, to create discoloration in the paint by using friction. After creating several small chips, I ended up with one that was larger than intended. Then I just rolled with it and made it into another long diagonal scratch. And here is the tank after I finished the process. I was very happy with these results, I have to say, which frankly were better than any I ever got before. So what are my conclusions, guys? Well, first of all, that this technique is a blast. It's even more fun than pin washing, which has always been a favorite of mine. There is just something about applying mechanical weather into your models that really resonates with me. Secondly, I'm quite sure that some of the tools I used, namely lacquer paints, Tamiya Clear and Tamiya Mark Fit Strong, made a difference in this process. Therefore, bear in mind that it may be hard to replicate these results with water-based paints, water-based varnishes, and water-based decal solutions. But be that as it may, I would encourage you all to try scratching and chipping your decals, and let me know how it goes either in the Race for Terra Discord or in the comments below. And speaking of our Discord, I would like to thank all my Patreon supporters who make it possible for me to do things like keep upgrading my camera and audio gear or buy new products to test. If you would also like to join a vibrant community of fellow weather enthusiasts and get involved in the content that I make, have a look at my Patreon page. Thank you all, and remember, keep it up and weather it out.